My uncle laughed, still in that tiny apartment. My sister sneered. Must be tough. Then Mom saw my Lamborghini key, and the whole family went silent. My name is Alex. I am 28 years old. I live in the city, and until recently, I drove a dusty 2010 Corolla that made a strange wheezing noise every time it hit 60. I used to laugh about it with my coworkers. The old man still got fight in him, I would say. But I cannot lie. Every time I parked that car outside my apartment, I felt small. Not because I was ashamed of being practical. I worked hard, saved money, and lived beneath my means. I felt small because my family had a way of making me feel like no matter what I did, I was never quite enough. It started way back. Honestly, I was the quiet one in a loud family. I was the one who preferred books to parties, internships to vacations, and simple routines over chaos. My sister Alyssa, 2 years older than me, was the family star. She was always dressed to the nines, always dating someone rich or important, or both. She got a business degree from some expensive school my parents helped fund, even though she barely passed. But she knew how to play the part. Fake it until you make it. Right. And my parents, especially my mother, absolutely adored her for it. My Uncle Tony, my mother's younger brother, was the kind of guy who bragged about buying stock in crypto before it was cool, and told the same 3 stories every Thanksgiving. He made his money in real estate flipping, or so he said, though no one ever quite knew how he kept affording new Rolexes. He had that booming, sarcastic voice that made you feel like he was mocking you, even when he was supposedly joking. So yes, family gatherings were not exactly confidence boosters, but I still showed up. Maybe part of me hoped that one day they would see me differently. Maybe one day they would respect the fact that I had built something for myself, on my own, without cutting corners. I had been working in tech for the past few years. I started as a junior back-end developer, grinding through late nights and unpaid overtime, trying to prove I belonged in a field where everyone else seemed to have Ivy League diplomas and startup equity. Eventually, I found my groove. I took a risk 2 years ago and joined a stealth startup with barely any funding. It was a gamble. I lived off ramen and dollar coffee, sharing a shoebox apartment with peeling paint and a broken radiator. But the gamble paid off. Last November, the company got acquired for a jaw-dropping sum, and thanks to the shares I held quietly and humbly, I became a millionaire overnight. But I did not rush to show it. I still lived in that same tiny apartment. I still drove the old man. I kept my head down, reinvested most of what I had, and bought a few things here and there. I wanted to be smart, strategic, not flashy. That is just how I have always been. Still, something in me wanted closure. I had spent years being underestimated, mocked even by my own flesh and blood. And the truth is, no matter how much you grow, some part of you still craves validation from the people who raised you. The people who made you feel like you were never quite enough. So when my mother texted me about the upcoming family brunch at Uncle Tony's new house, a 3-story glass monstrosity in the suburbs, part of me groaned, but another part of me whispered, "This is your chance." She said it like an order, not a request. Sunday, 11 a.m. sharp. Everyone's coming. Wear something nice. I almost did not reply, but after a minute, I sent back, "Sure. I'll be there." I had not seen any of them in over a year, not since Christmas, when Alyssa casually asked if I was still coding in my pajamas all day while flicking caviar off her fingernails. That night ended with Dad pulling me aside and asking if I had thought about real estate school. You know, he set a backup plan just in case the tech thing doesn't pan out. I remember laughing bitterly, not even bothering to explain that I was leading a product team at that point. So, yes, I had a few memories to burn through. That Sunday, I arrived early. I pulled quietly into Uncle Tony's circular driveway in my new car, a matte black Lamborghini Huracan Technica, the kind that growls even when it is idling. I had only picked it up the day before, a splurge I had agonized over for weeks. But when I sat in it, keys in hand, I realized I was not buying it for speed. I was buying it for me. For every time I had been laughed at, dismissed, or belittled. As I stepped out, the afternoon sun hit the sleek curves of the car. I saw them all gathered near the backyard patio. Tony's voice carried first. "Alyssa, come here and see this indoor sauna. I just finished it. Steam from Finland." Then came my mother's shrill laughter, followed by the unmistakable sound of clinking mimosas. I walked through the side gate, key fob still in hand, and saw them all turn toward me. Tony, holding a tumbler of scotch, raised an eyebrow. Still living in that tiny apartment? Alex, he called out with a chuckle. Alyssa, lounging in some designer floral dress, crossed her legs dramatically and sneered. Must be tough. I smiled just a little. I did not say anything. Then Mom, mid-sip, squinted. Her eyes dropped to my hand. Wait, she said slowly, the color draining from her face. Is that a Lamborghini fob? I held it up slightly, as if I had forgotten I was even holding it. Oh, this, I said, tilting my head. Just a little housewarming gift to myself. You could have heard a fork drop. Their reactions were priceless. I did not rub it in, at least not yet, but the look in their eyes shifted for just a second, from amusement to confusion, then to something else. Maybe doubt, maybe fear. It was the first time in my life I felt like I had the upper hand, and I was not done yet. Because what they did not know, what none of them had any idea about, was that the car was just the beginning. I had other plans, quiet ones, smart ones. And they were about to learn that the person they had spent years mocking was someone they should never have underestimated. But for now, I just smiled and walked toward the patio key still in hand, while the silence stretched like a rubber band waiting to snap. And oh, it would. Just not yet. The silence only lasted a second, just long enough for the embarrassment to settle in. But they recovered fast. My family had always been experts at twisting the narrative in real time. Like reality was just a dress they could tailor to fit whatever made them feel superior. Uncle Tony clapped his hands once, sharply, like he was shaking off the moment. Well, well, he said, his voice louder than necessary. Look at you, big shot. Midlife crisis already. Thought that came at 40, not 28. Alyssa snorted. That's not a housewarming gift. That's a cry for help, she said, sipping her mimosa. Bet your rent's going to triple now that the neighbors think you're some kind of influencer. I did not bite. I just smiled and took the empty seat at the far end of the table. I was not about to let them drag me down into the old dynamics. Not this time. But they kept going. Mom leaned in from the other side of the table, her voice doing that thing where it sounded sweet but had claws underneath. Honey, she said that car must have cost, well, I don't even want to know. But don't you think it's a little much? Especially when you're still living in that old apartment with the cracked windows? Dad, sitting beside her, nodded with a grunt. Should have put that money into property, something stable. A house, maybe. You remember that duplex Alyssa showed us? That was a smart deal. I bit the inside of my cheek. I remembered that duplex. I also remembered how I had offered to help Alyssa understand her taxes last year, and she told me to leave the money stuff to the adults. Alyssa turned toward me. Actually, I've been meaning to ask, do you have any connections at your company? I know someone who's looking for a job in tech. Totally brilliant, really hard worker. She's got like a lifestyle brand on Instagram. Could use something stable while she's working on growing it. I blinked. You mean you? She shrugged, all innocent. Who else? I looked at her for a beat. She had not worked a full-time job in over 3 years. Her last business venture was a pyramid scheme in all but name, and the one before that was selling essential oils infused with moonlight. I remembered because she tried to get Mom to invest $5 grand in it. She did. Before I could answer, Uncle Tony laughed again. I mean, hey, if he can afford a Lambo, maybe he is in charge of hiring, right? Alyssa said quickly. It's only fair. Family helps family. That part hit me sideways. Family helps family. Where was that phrase when I worked 60-hour weeks and could not afford groceries? Where was it when I had to skip Christmas 3 years ago because rent was due? And Mom told me, priorities, sweetheart. Where was it when they threw a graduation party for Alyssa and never even showed up for mine? Sure, I said calmly. Send over your resume. Alyssa brightened instantly, already flipping open her phone. Great, it's more like a portfolio, but of course, I added. I'll have to send it through the proper review channels. There's a pretty strict process for interns, and there's no guarantee. Her face froze. Interns? Yeah, I said, sipping my water. We don't really hire junior roles without experience. A beat passed. Tony chuckled, clearly sensing the tension. "Well," he said, "sounds like someone's feeling himself today." I ignored him. Instead, I turned to Mom. "So, how's the new remodel going?" She looked surprised by the question, then softened. "It's been good, actually. Expensive, but worth it. Of course, we had to dip into your father's pension just a bit. Things are tight these days." Dad muttered something about inflation. I nodded. "That's rough." She glanced sideways. "Which reminds me, your brother said you've been doing well lately. He mentioned something about stocks. Maybe you could, take a look at our portfolio sometime, just to see if we're positioned correctly." I swallowed the laugh rising in my throat. Not even subtle. She did not ask how I was doing or what I had been up to. She just pivoted straight into what I could do for them. "Maybe," I said, "when I have time." She smiled politely, but I saw the flicker of irritation in her eyes, like a child being told maybe later after asking for candy. As brunch continued, the tension shifted. They tried to steer the conversation back towards safe ground. Alyssa's new lifestyle rebrand. Tony's plans to invest in some undervalued commercial property. But every so often, someone's gaze would drift toward the driveway, where the Lamborghini sat gleaming in the sun like a black diamond. It was like a ghost haunting them. At one point, Alyssa got up to refill her drink and muttered under her breath as she passed me, "It's just a car, Alex. Doesn't make you better than us." I did not respond. I did not need to. But then came the moment that really set everything in motion. After the meal, we were all lingering around the patio. Uncle Tony was showing off his new fire pit, complete with some voice-controlled lighting system that barely worked. That was when he dropped it. One of those casual bombs meant to sound offhand, but aimed like a knife. So he said, clapping me on the back, "Now that you're rolling in cash, are you finally going to grow up and move out of that shoebox? Get a place with a real kitchen, maybe. Heck, buy a place like this if you're serious." Everyone laughed, even Mom. I shrugged. "Already bought a place." That shut them up. "You what?" Dad said. I turned and took another sip of water, letting the silence breathe. "Closed last week," I said, not bothering to hide the grin this time. "Downtown penthouse. It has a rooftop terrace and a private elevator." Alyssa blinked. "You're kidding." "Nope." "Wait," Mom said slowly. How much was it?" "Little under $6 million. Dead silence. Tony recovered first. "Wow, big spender. Hope you don't blow it all in one place." "Already diversified," I said. This was just the part I felt like living in. I could feel the shift. The tone had changed. They were not mocking me anymore. They were calculating, trying to figure out how to reframe things, how to place themselves closer to the new power center without looking desperate. And I saw it in Mom's eyes first, that flicker of something greedy and entitled, like the wheels had already started turning. That was the moment I knew. They did not just want validation anymore. They wanted access. And they were going to start asking for it, one favor at a time. What they did not know, what they never expected, was that I already knew exactly how this game worked, and I had no intention of letting them win. Not this time. But that part comes later. For now, I just stood there in the patio's filtered light, letting them process everything they thought they knew about me unraveling in real time. Because the real story was only just beginning. The brunch ended awkwardly, with stiff hugs and overly sweet goodbyes. Alyssa tried to mask her bitterness by complimenting my shirt. "Is that Zara or like some minimalist thing?" And Mom gave me that long, lingering look she always did when she was about to ask for something. But for once, I did not offer anything. I just nodded, thanked them for the meal, and walked back to my car without a backward glance. The next few weeks were quiet. Suspiciously quiet. No text from Alyssa with passive-aggressive links to job listings. No voicemails from Dad asking if I had considered investing in modular prefab homes yet. Even Mom, who usually sent me a dozen emojis a week and random forwarded articles about the smart habits of successful men, had gone silent. At first I thought maybe they were giving me space. Maybe finally some respect had settled in. Maybe the Lamborghini, the penthouse, and the quiet success had bought me something I had never had in that family. Dignity. I should have known better. It started with a phone call. I was at the new place, standing barefoot on the rooftop terrace, sipping coffee and watching the skyline turn orange as the sun dipped behind the buildings. My phone buzzed. Mom. I hesitated, then answered. Hey. Hi, sweetheart, she said too brightly. How's the new home? I keep picturing you up there like Bruce Wayne, all handsome and mysterious. I chuckled. It's great, still settling in. A beat of silence. Then she said, Listen, your Uncle Tony mentioned something about a housewarming. I paused. I had not planned one yet. Oh, her voice dropped just slightly. Well, we'd love to see the place. It's been so long since we've done anything as a family. I think it would be really good for Alyssa. You know she's been going through a rough patch. I did not ask what kind of rough patch. I did not need to. Alyssa's rough patches were code for running out of credit. I'll think about it, I said, keeping my tone neutral. She did not like that. But she did not push. Not then. 2 days later, I came home to find a delivery van parked outside my building. Workers were hauling what looked like catering trays, crates of champagne, floral arrangements, and even folding chairs. I blinked in confusion and went straight up to the lobby. There, standing with our concierge and flashing her too bright smile, was Alyssa. Alex, she chirped like we were old friends. Perfect timing. I was just making sure everything is in place for Saturday. My stomach dropped. For what? She blinked innocently. The housewarming. Didn't Mom tell you we've got the guest list down to 64? Nothing crazy, just family friends, a few influencers. Oh, and there's a violinist. I stared at her. You planned a party at my home. Well, our home for the day. She waved a manicured hand. We wanted to surprise you. I never agreed to this. Oh, please, she scoffed. You've got the space. You're not using it for anything anyway. Don't be selfish. I felt something twist in my chest. Who gave you permission to even enter my building? Mom did. She smiled sweetly. She said you'd be too humble to plan something like this for yourself, so she helped me coordinate. She said to use the building's event request form. I turned to the concierge. Did someone submit a form under my name? He looked uncomfortable. Yes, sir. It was emailed with your signature. I assumed it was approved. I narrowed my eyes. Can you show me? He hesitated, then pulled it up on the screen. There it was. My name. My address. My signature. Except it was not mine. It was forged. The email was from a Gmail address I had not used in years. A throwaway account I had signed up for in college long before I got serious about privacy and security. And then I realized Mom had access to that account. Years ago, when I was between jobs and she helped me apply for things, she insisted on keeping the login. I had forgotten all about it. I turned back to Alyssa. You forged my approval. You're hosting a party I didn't agree to, at my home, with over 60 people I don't know. Oh my God, she said, laughing. Stop being dramatic. It's just one day. You're not even using the space. Get out. Her smile faltered. Excuse me? Get out of my building right now. Alex, I'm not asking twice. Her jaw clenched. She glanced at the concierge, then back at me. Fine, she spat, but you're seriously going to regret being this petty. Mom said you'd act like this. That night, I canceled every vendor, blocked the access passes, and sent a note to building security to deny entry to my family for the foreseeable future. I was angry. But more than that, I was hurt. They had not asked. They never asked. They just took like they always had. And this time, they had crossed a line. The betrayal stung deeper than I expected. It was not just the forged form or the party I never approved. It was the realization that, even now, after everything, I was still just a resource to them, a wallet, a venue, a status symbol, not a person. A week passed. No one called. No one apologized. Then came the second punch. I got an alert from my bank about a flagged transaction, a $9,700 pending wire transfer to a private account. The name on the account was Alyssa Rivera. I nearly dropped my phone. It had been initiated through my business account, one that no one in my family knew existed, one that I had protected with two-factor authentication and internal access only. Or so I thought. I spent the next hour on the phone with the bank, locking everything down, running security checks, and tracing access logs. The breach came through a shared Wi-Fi network from my mother's house. The last time I had visited, I had logged into my business email briefly to forward myself a contract. Apparently, someone, almost certainly Alyssa, had copied my credentials from the router cache using some shady app. I stared at the flag transaction for a long time. It was not just betrayal now, it was theft. Calculated, cold, entitled. And I knew without a doubt that they were not going to stop until I made them. That was the moment everything inside me shifted. The anger did not just boil, it hardened into resolve. They wanted to play games. Fine, I knew how to play too. But this time, I would not just protect what was mine. This time, I was going to make sure they could never do it to anyone else again. I did not sleep that night, not a wink. I sat in my living room with the lights off, watching the glow of the skyline through floor-to-ceiling windows, my mind spinning in 1,000 directions. I had the money, the title, the view, but none of it could drown out the familiar ache pressing against my chest. That knot of betrayal. That weight of knowing deep in your gut that the people who raised you never really saw you. They saw what you could give them. And now that I had something worth taking, they had sunk their claws in again, only deeper this time. I kept replaying it all. The forged signature, the unauthorized party, the attempted wire transfer, Alyssa laughing it off, calling me selfish, Mom saying I had overreacted when I finally called her. That call had been short. Did you really think forging my approval for a party in my home was okay? I asked, trying to keep my voice calm. Mom sighed like I was inconveniencing her. You're so sensitive, Alex. It was meant to celebrate you. You've done well. We just wanted to share that with everyone. And the bank transfer? Was that celebrating me too? Silence. I waited. She finally said she needed help. Alex, you have so much. Your sister is just trying to get back on her feet. I didn't even know she had my banking info. You logged in from our house. Don't blame us if you left doors open. She said that like it was my fault, like I had invited them in to take whatever they wanted, like I owed them for existing. I'm done, I said, with all of you. Oh, don't be dramatic. Families fight. No, families don't steal from each other. You're going to regret cutting off your own blood, she snapped. You'll end up alone. Then she hung up. And I sat there alone in a $6 million penthouse with a Lamborghini downstairs and a closet full of tailored clothes I barely wore, feeling like I was right back in that shoebox apartment, just older, lonelier, and with a better view. I did not go into the office for a few days. I told the team I was sick. I turned off Slack and ignored emails. The startup was stable now post-acquisition, and I had built a team that did not need me every hour. But I still felt guilty, like I was letting something crumble again. I did not have the energy to fix anything. I barely had the energy to get out of bed. My apartment, once a symbol of how far I had come, started to feel like a gilded prison. Every echoing step reminded me that I had no one to share it with, no partner, no close friends nearby. I had pushed so hard for so long to prove myself that I had not built much of a life outside of work. I ordered food but barely touched it. I let dishes pile up. My houseplants withered. I did not answer when the doorman buzzed. I ghosted my team lead when she asked if I needed support. One night, I sat at my desk staring at the wire transfer screen. $9,700. It was not even about the money. It was about the audacity. The certainty with which Alyssa believed she could reach into my life and take what she wanted like it was hers by birthright. And Mom defending it, justifying it, hit harder than I wanted to admit. I kept flashing back to when I was 14 and Alyssa had taken my college savings bond, something our grandfather left only for me, and used it to buy herself a trip to Europe. Mom had covered for her then, too. She needed it more, she had said. You'll find another way. And I had. Every time they took something, I rebuilt. But I was so tired of rebuilding in silence. So I started making lists. Not vengeful plans. Not yet. Just facts. Accounts I needed to audit. Access points I needed to lock down. Legal options should I need them. Security upgrades for everything. Two-factor authentication. private server encryption, biometric locks. I moved funds into cold storage flagged accounts with suspicious login attempts, contacted a digital security consultant and hired him for a full privacy sweep. Then I went a step further. I changed my will. I wrote it out carefully, detailing every contingency down to the cent. If anything ever happened to me, not a single member of my family would see a dime. Not mom, not dad, especially not Alyssa. Instead, it would go to a scholarship fund, one for kids like me. Quiet, overlooked. The ones everyone dismissed because they did not shine in the way their families wanted. I even named the fund after my grandfather, the one who tried to give me a start before it was stolen. Then I called a lawyer, a very good one. I told him everything, not just the wire attempt, but the long history of financial gaslighting, the emotional manipulation, and the forged email. He did not say much. He just nodded and started drafting papers. I did not know what the endgame was yet, but I knew I had to walk away, not just emotionally, but completely, financially, legally, digitally. A clean break. I canceled the joint phone line I had still been paying for in my parents' name. I cut off the automatic transfer that had been funding their emergency savings for the last 5 years. I pulled out of the investment fund I had let Dad manage for a so-called family legacy. I let the broker know I was taking full control of the assets. It was not about punishing them. It was about finally choosing me. But even as I started cutting cords, part of me wondered if I was doing the right thing. Was I becoming cold, heartless? Would I wake up one day and regret it, just like Mom said? Then, a few days later, I got an alert. A private Facebook group, Rivera Family Reunion, hosted by Alyssa and friends. I clicked out of curiosity. The banner was a photo of my car, taken without my knowledge, parked in front of my building. The caption read, "Celebrating the success of our amazing little brother. Can't wait to toast him with friends and family next month. RSVP soon." I stared at the screen, heart pounding. Not only were they still planning to use me, they were broadcasting it, claiming me. Even now, after everything, they were still framing it like they owned my story. Like my success was just another party prop they could wave around to boost their own image. And suddenly, the question was not whether I was going to walk away completely. It was how far I was willing to go to make sure they never had the chance to do this to me or anyone else ever again. That Facebook post changed everything. I sat at my desk staring at the screen, every word sinking into my chest like a stone. Celebrating our amazing little brother. The hypocrisy would have been laughable if it had not felt so personal. There it was, the final confirmation that to them, I was not a person. I was a narrative, a success story they wanted to wrap themselves around like a designer scarf. Something they could wear at parties and smile about as if they had built me. I closed the laptop without reacting. I did not call, I did not comment, I did not even block them. They wanted to spin a story. Fine, I would write the ending myself. But this time, they would not be in it. That week, something inside me shifted. The pain, the hollow ache of betrayal was still there, but it hardened into something sharper, more focused. I began waking up earlier. I worked out again. I cleaned the apartment. I filled the fridge. I reached out to my team, and to my surprise, they welcomed me back with open arms. Apparently, I had earned more goodwill than I realized. When I showed up for our Monday meeting, the entire dev squad clapped. I laughed genuinely for the first time in weeks and took my usual spot near the whiteboard. The startup that had once been a long shot was now growing rapidly. After the acquisition, the parent company offered me a key leadership role, not just a title and equity. They wanted to spin out a sister company, a hybrid AI platform for high-level logistics, and they wanted me to lead it, fully funded, minimal oversight, full control. I took the deal quietly and strategically. I did not make an announcement. I did not post about it online. But I hired a team of brilliant engineers, found a sleek private office space downtown, and got to work. This time, I was not building out of fear. I was not hustling just to prove I deserved a seat at the table. I was the table now, and it felt different, cleaner, calmer. I set new boundaries too. I fired my old accountant. He had been referred by Dad years ago. Then I hired a rock-solid financial advisor who had built portfolios for C-level executives. I moved all my assets into secure trusts, closed all shared accounts, and created a new holding company to manage my investments completely under my name. And I started saying no. No to my parents' urgent request for financial help when their roof leaked. No to Alyssa when she sent a breezy text about wanting to catch up over lunch, which somehow included the address of a $200 a plate sushi bar. No to Uncle Tony when he emailed about a hot investment opportunity in Boise. Just no. And I did not explain. I did not justify. I just went silent. Their confusion was immediate. Then came the guilt trips, the passive-aggressive group texts, the long voicemails from Mom asking if I was okay and wondering why I had changed. I had changed. I was not that quiet kid desperate to please anymore. I was not someone they could mold into a family ATM. I was mine. That summer, I bought a small cabin 3 hours outside the city. Not flashy, not expensive, just quiet, surrounded by trees and stars. I kept it to myself. No one in my family even knew it existed. I would go there on weekends, bring a book, cook simple meals, and listen to music. I had not realized how much noise I had grown used to. The expectations, the judgment, the constant tug of wanting approval. Out there, it was just me and peace. Back in the city, I started mentoring younger engineers. A few had stories like mine. Brilliant minds who had grown up overlooked, underappreciated, dismissed because they were not loud or charismatic. I helped one guy polish his resume and get into Google. I connected another with a seed fund I had invested in and watched her raise $300,000 in less than a week. Their wins felt more real than any car, any suit, or any number in my account. Meanwhile, my new company was gaining traction fast. By fall, we landed 3 major enterprise clients and a $1.5 million pre-order for the beta. Investors came calling, the parent company upped my equity stake, my name started floating around in quiet VC circles. Still, I stayed off social media. I did not want the spotlight. I did not need it. But others noticed anyway. One afternoon in September, I walked into a private conference for startup founders and immediately felt a dozen eyes on me. A woman from a major tech journal introduced herself and asked if I would be open to a profile. I hesitated, but eventually said yes, on one condition. She could not publish anything about my family. She asked why. Because they're not part of the story, I said. And it was true. They had always treated my ambition like an inconvenience until it started printing money. Then suddenly, I was theirs, their prodigy, their pride. But they never helped build any of it. They did not support me when I was working 2 jobs and eating instant noodles. They did not show up for my graduation. They were not there when I needed advice or encouragement. They only showed up when they saw dollar signs. So now they were out. And without my support, they were struggling. I heard from an old high school friend that Alyssa had posted a GoFundMe for a business recovery fund, something about a broken camera and unjustified platform censorship. The only donation was from Mom. Dad called twice. Both were missed calls. No voicemails. I ignored them. It was not revenge, not yet, but it was power. And for the first time in my life, I had it. I was not rushing. I was not flailing. I was not hustling for anyone else's approval. I was building on my terms. And I knew sooner or later they would try to come back. They would find some new excuse, some new crisis, some new manipulation. But next time, I would be ready. Because I had something they never did. Not just money, not just success, clarity, and a plan. It happened on a random Thursday afternoon. Nothing dramatic, nothing cinematic, just a soft ping on my work phone while I was reviewing our third-quarter roadmap with the product team. Subject, Notice of Inquiry, Rivera Holdings, LLC. I nearly dismissed it. My name was not Rivera Holdings. But the sender, someone from a mid-tier legal firm in Jersey, had attached documents, and there, plain as day, was my name. Apparently, my parents had formed an LLC a few months ago, and somehow I was listed as a co-founding contributor. The documents claimed I had transferred assets to the LLC and orally committed future financial backing to ensure its operations. That wording sent a chill through my chest. It was vague, legally clumsy, and just plausible enough to cause problems if I did not shut it down fast. I immediately looped in my lawyer. He read through the documents, then muttered, "They're phishing. This isn't a real claim. It's a setup." For what I asked? To pressure you. Or to make you look like you're part of something you never agreed to. My guess is they're leveraging your name for legitimacy. He was right. I did some quiet digging, and what I found made my stomach turn. Rivera Holdings LLC had launched a luxury lifestyle brand, complete with a cheap Shopify site, Instagram ads featuring my parents' backyard dressed up to look like a spa, and an About Us page claiming the business was built from generational wisdom and cutting-edge tech, courtesy of their son's industry experience. My face was not on the page, but my story was almost word for word stolen from the private podcast interview I had done a few months earlier, the one I had asked not to be made public. The worst part was that they had already received small business funding from a lender that trusted their story because of me. My blood boiled. They were using me again, not just socially, not just to impress relatives or flaunt at brunch, financially, legally, fraudulently. And I realized something in that moment. They were never going to stop, not unless I made them. But I was not going to confront them. No angry phone calls, no shouting matches, no text messages begging them to explain. This time, I would take a different path, one they would not see coming, one they could not wiggle out of. I met with my lawyer again, and we began quietly building a case. Not for court, for control. The kind of control that would give me the leverage to make this end on my terms. It started with documentation. I compiled years' worth of emails, text, voice messages, anything that demonstrated how my family had benefited from my finances without contracts or consent. We found the forged event form from the housewarming. We gathered bank records showing unauthorized transfers. I pulled the archived Facebook group post where they used my likeness to promote a celebration that never happened. And of course, I screen captured the entire Rivera Holdings site. My lawyer contacted the small business lender they had tricked. We presented enough evidence to trigger an internal fraud audit. Their loan was flagged and frozen. Then I took things a step further. I hired a private investigator, not for dirt, nothing shady, just facts. Because I had a hunch this was not the first time they had played this game. And I was right. In the last 5 years, my parents had funneled money through no fewer than 4 shell companies. None of them lasted more than 18 months. They had used different names, different friends as silent co-signers, even an old landlord as a stand-in manager. And each time the company tanked, they moved on like nothing happened. The worst one was a company that had scammed a family friend out of $50,000. Someone who believed my father when he said it was a guaranteed short-term investment backed by my tech success. That family friend was Mr. Patel, my high school chemistry teacher. The same man who once gave me a ride home every day for a year when my parents forgot to pick me up. I called him. He answered on the second ring. His voice cracked when he heard my name. "I'm sorry," I said. "I didn't know what they did, but I'm going to make it right." "You don't have to," he said. "I want to." I wired him the $50,000 the next day. No fanfare, no public show, just a promise quietly kept. But it was not about the money. It was about the shift. I was not just healing myself anymore. I was undoing their damage, cleaning up their mess. And with every step, I got stronger. I partnered with a legal team that specialized in white-collar fraud. We drafted cease and desist letters, filed formal complaints with the Federal Trade Commission and the Better Business Bureau, and prepared civil claims for identity misuse and fraud, just in case. I still was not sure I would go that far, but I wanted the gun loaded in case I needed to pull the trigger. Then I moved on to the quiet part of the plan, reputation. I contacted a branding firm, not for clout, for protection. They helped me build a verified public-facing profile. Not a flashy one, just enough digital presence to separate my identity from anything my family tried to link me to. We optimized SEO, established a simple personal site, secured trademark protections on my name in association with my businesses, and created a paper trail of public disassociation from Rivera Holdings and anything affiliated with it. Then I bought the domain riverholdings.org and redirected it to a static page that read, "This company is not affiliated with Alex Rivera or any of his business ventures. All unauthorized use of his name and likeness is being handled through legal channels." I did not tell them I was doing any of this. I did not need to, because by the time they found out, it would be too late. Then came the final piece. One of the founders I mentored, Sarah, had started a nonprofit that offered mentorship and startup grants to underrepresented youth in tech. She was growing fast but struggling with consistent funding. I reached out to her one night and offered to become her first anchor investor. "Are you sure?" she asked, stunned. I don't even know how to thank you." "Don't," I said. "Just do the work. Build something that lasts." I donated anonymously, but I stayed involved quietly. She did not know it, but I was working on setting up a permanent trust that would funnel 10% of my annual profits directly to her nonprofit for the next decade. It was my answer to the question that had haunted me since the betrayal. What do I do with all of this? The answer was simple. I give it to people who deserve it, not people who demand it. That fall, I received a final email from Mom. Subject line: "We need to talk. Please." The message was short. "I know you're angry, but this isn't how families treat each other. I'm sorry if you feel we crossed the line. We just wanted to be part of your success. Please don't do anything that would hurt your sister or the business. You've come so far. Let's not burn bridges." There it was. Still the same spin. "If you feel we crossed the line." No, they crossed it. Still protecting Alyssa. Still defending a business built on lies. Still trying to guilt me into silence. But now, I was not angry. I was not heartbroken. I was ready. The next chapter was coming, and this time, they would not be the ones writing it. It was December when the house of cards finally started to fall. Not with a bang, but with a knock. Alyssa opened the door to her rented townhouse in the suburbs and found a man in a gray suit holding a small envelope. He handed it over with a polite nod. "Ms. Rivera, you've been served." It was not a lawsuit, not yet. It was a formal notice of disassociation. A legally binding declaration stating that I, Alex Rivera, had never been involved in Rivera Holdings LLC, nor had I authorized the use of my name, likeness, or reputation in connection with any of their activities. It outlined in detail every instance of unauthorized use I had documented, and it gave them 14 days to remove every reference, retract every statement, and dissolve any promotional materials containing my name. If they failed, the real consequences would follow. I made sure copies were sent to Mom, Dad, their accountant, who, it turned out, had no idea he was part of a scam. And this part was delicious. Their loan officer at the small business bank that had approved their funding. The first domino fell 3 days later. The lender revoked the $45,000 loan and began an internal fraud investigation. Their accounts were frozen. Their Shopify storefront was removed for identity abuse. Instagram flagged their brand as under review. And within 48 hours, their entire social media presence vanished. But the real moment I had been waiting for came from a familiar voice, Mr. Patel. He filed a small claims lawsuit against Rivera Holdings for the full amount he had been misled into investing, $50,000. I had told him I would stay out of it, but his son was a lawyer, and apparently, he wanted to make a point. The lawsuit was small, but it opened the door. Because once it became public record, others started stepping forward. One by one, former friends, coworkers, neighbors, all people my parents or Alyssa had quietly borrowed from, pitched to, or taken advantage of, started sharing stories. One woman claimed my mom had promised to include her as a co-founder in a beauty line that never existed. Another man said Alyssa convinced him to sponsor her wellness retreat in exchange for brand placement, only for the retreat to get canceled and his money to disappear. It was not just a few lies. It was a pattern. And now that pattern had receipts. I had quietly worked with my legal team to compile a full report, A timeline complete with evidence, screenshots, and transaction records of everything my family had done over the last 10 years in my name or connected to my success. We titled it, The Legacy They Tried to Steal. I never released it publicly. I did not need to, but I did send a copy anonymously to every vendor, bank, and potential partner they had listed as references on Rivera Holdings. The calls stopped, the doors closed, and the whispers started. Even Uncle Tony, who once boasted about flipping condos and leveraging connections, sent me a shaky LinkedIn message asking if I wanted to grab lunch and talk things out. I did not respond. But the final straw, the moment I knew the revenge had landed exactly where it needed to, came at 6:41 a.m. on Christmas Eve. I was at the cabin fireplace, crackling coffee in hand, when my phone buzzed with a number I had not seen in months. Mom. I let it go to voicemail, but curiosity got the better of me and I played it. Her voice was brittle, cold. Alex, I hope you're proud of yourself. Your sister had to move out. The business is gone. We're being audited. Everything we built is unraveling because you had to punish us over what? A misunderstanding. A party. You could have handled this quietly, like family, but you chose this. There was a pause. I hope someday you understand the damage you've done. We're your blood. I played the message twice, not because I was shaken, but because it confirmed everything I had ever known about them. They had not learned anything. They still believed they were the victims. Even now, after they stole, lied, and manipulated, they thought I was the one who owed them. And that is why I never regretted any of it, because this was not revenge born from hate. It was justice born from truth. I did not destroy them. They did that on their own. All I did was remove the safety net they had used to bounce back every time. The safety net I used to be. Now they would fall like everyone else. And me, I finally stood tall. Not in spite of them, without them. The fallout was not explosive. It was slow, humiliating, and public in the ways that mattered most to them. The LLC dissolved within weeks. The fraud investigation led to a full IRS audit. It turned out my parents had been mixing personal and business funds for years, writing off extravagant purchases, spa weekends, luxury handbags, and first-class flights as consulting expenses. The back taxes alone were enough to bury them. Their accountant, terrified of liability, cut ties immediately and reported potential misconduct to the state board. Their credit tanked soon after. Alyssa moved back in with them. Her influencer life quietly died. No more beach selfies, no more curated brunches. Her sponsorships pulled out when word spread that she had used a fake endorsement from me in her brand pitch deck. The laptop she once used to edit motivational content was sold on Facebook Marketplace for $200. I never spoke to any of them again. They sent messages for months, ranging from furious and accusatory to pathetically apologetic. I read none of them. I had my assistant filter every call, every email, every attempt. Eventually, even those stopped. The rest of the world moved on, and so did I. The new company grew beyond anything I imagined. In the spring, we secured a partnership with a global logistics firm. Our valuation tripled. Investors called me a visionary, a quiet force in the tech space. I just smiled and kept working. The scholarship fund I started in my grandfather's name launched its first cohort. I flew out to meet the students personally, young kids with fire in their eyes, most of whom had no idea what they were capable of yet. I saw myself in them, and for once I felt like the success I had built meant something more than just escaping my past. I never posted about my wins. I never clapped back online. I never exposed them publicly, because I did not need to. Their downfall spoke louder than any tweet ever could. Years later, a journalist reached out about doing a feature on self-made founders who rose from difficult families. I declined, but I gave her one quote. Sometimes the best revenge isn't proving them wrong. It's living so far above their world that they can't even reach your shadow. And I meant it. That December, I spent Christmas alone in my mountain cabin. No drama, no guilt. Just snow silence and a roaring fire. I poured a glass of wine, raised it to the night, and whispered, to peace. Then I let the past burn behind me.